My name is Sergeant Nathan Vale, Delta Force. Troop designation redacted under Joint Arctic Containment Protocols. I am recording this statement because paper feels too still now. Screens go dark at the wrong moments. Radios wake up by themselves. Every time I close my eyes, I hear 3 soft knocks, spaced like a patient hand on a locked door. That was the first thing we noticed in the dead city. Not the silence, not the cold, the knocking. We flew in over northern Alaska in a blacked-out MH-60 just before civil dawn, though dawn in that latitude was only a dirty gray smear over the horizon. Under us, the city looked preserved rather than ruined. Streets lay under a skin of wind-burnished ice. Traffic lights hung frozen in perfect sequence. Apartment towers stood dark and upright. No fires, no collapse, no movement. It looked like the population had been called outside at once and had simply dissolved into the snow. Our orders were clean and narrow. Insert, reach the municipal core. Recover any data storage from site Hecate beneath the old city utility grid. Confirm cause of total communication blackout. Extract by 1900 local. No mention of civilians. No mention of contamination. No mention of biological threat. There were 6 of us in the stack when we touched down on an iced-over soccer field beside an elementary school half buried in drift. Captain Elias Harlan, team lead. Master Sergeant Reeves, our heavy gunner. Mendez, combat medic. Sato, signals and electronic warfare. Bishop Breacher, and me. I ran point on entry and reconnaissance. The moment the bird lifted, the sound of its rotors faded too quickly, as if the city swallowed noise instead of reflecting it. I had operated in mountain valleys, tunnels, and underground complexes. Sound always came back altered somehow. Here it did not come back at all. Even our boots on the snow seemed to vanish after impact. Check comms, Harlan said. One by one we sounded off. Local worked. Encrypted Satlink did not. Sato tried burst, then narrowband, then line-of-sight relay. All he got was a wash of static that rose and fell like breathing. The cold bit straight through my gloves when I touched the chain-link fence near the field. Dry cold. Metal cold. The kind that pulls the heat out of your bones rather than your skin. There was another smell under the ice, too. Faint but wrong. Not rot. Not fuel. Something mineral and old, like wet stone lifted from a deep cellar. We moved east through the schoolyard. Plastic tricycles were frozen where they had tipped. A row of tiny mittens hung from a line near a side entrance, stiff with rime, moving just slightly though there was no wind. Bishop noticed it too. No airflow, he whispered. Nobody answered. Inside the school, the hallways were dark but intact. Lockers, faded wall art, lunch schedules, winter coats still hanging. The building had heat once, and when it failed, everything became a snapshot. Frost flowered along ceiling tiles. A mural of whales under northern lights peeled away from the cinder block wall. Mendez knelt by a patch of scuff marks near the main office. A lot of foot traffic. Fast movement. Out or in? I asked. He ran a gloved thumb along the pattern in the frost. Both. That was when we heard it for the first time. Tap, tap, tap. Soft, distant, from somewhere beyond the wall on our right. We all froze. Harlan raised a fist. Reeves shifted his weapon toward the sound. 3 more taps came back, exactly the same spacing. Bishop mouthed, pipes. It made sense. Settling. Thermal shift. Loose metal under cold stress. My mind accepted it because it wanted to. We resumed movement. But every man in the stack kept glancing at that wall, as if expecting a face to bulge through the paint. In the cafeteria, we found the first bodies. 12 of them, arranged in orderly rows on the tile floor, children and 2 adults, not piled, not scattered, aligned shoulder to shoulder, with their shoes placed neatly beside them. There was no visible trauma, no blood, skin pale, lips dark with cold, eyes closed as if someone had come through afterward and shut them all by hand. Mendez checked one despite the obvious. He pulled back fast, frozen solid. "'Cause?" Harlan asked. He looked at the small face before answering. Not exposure. The skin around the ears is ruptured. Sato moved closer, light trembling across the nearest body. A thin line of dark residue ran from the child's left ear into the collar of her jacket. "Pressure vent?" he said. I did not like the way the room felt. The cafeteria windows faced the street, and beyond them the city stood in perfect stillness under a colorless sky. But the bodies on the floor had been placed like an audience, facing the serving counter, facing the dark kitchen doors. Reeves noticed it next. Why are they all turned that way? Nobody answered, because at that exact moment 3 soft taps came from inside the kitchen. Tap, tap, tap. Reeves fired the door open with his shoulder, and we flooded the threshold. Stainless steel counters, fallen trays, frost, hanging ladles. No movement, no thermal signatures on my handheld, but one of the walk-in freezer doors at the back was open a few inches. I went first. The hinges gave a slow cry when I pulled it wider. The smell that came out was not food. It was the same mineral dampness, stronger now, mixed with old copper and something sweet enough to make my stomach tighten. The freezer was empty except for a maintenance hatch cut through the rear wall. The hatch had not been built with the school. Fresh weld scars ringed its frame. A ladder descended into darkness. Sato knelt by the cut edges. Military work. Recent. Harlan stared down the shaft for 3 long seconds. This city wasn't dead by accident. That ladder took us into a service tunnel below the school and, from there, into the buried underworks of the city. The temperature dropped another 10 degrees. Frost glazed the concrete in layered feathers. Our light sliced through suspended crystals. We passed steam pipes, conduit bundles, emergency signage, and then deeper structures that did not belong on municipal maps. Reinforced blast doors, decontamination alcoves, fiber trunks sealed with federal tags. Site Hecate began below the public grid, like a second city stitched inside the first. At 0940 local, Sato finally got something other than static on comms. A voice, weak, female, repeating on a loop, "Do not answer the knocking. Do not answer the knocking. If they sound like us, do not answer." Then the loop cut into a burst of screaming, clipped short, and all frequencies died again. Reeves looked at Harlan. "We abort." "Negative," Harlan said. "Too quickly. We're close to mission objective." That was Harlan. Not reckless, not eager, controlled to the point of severity. So when I heard strain in his voice, I marked it. We all did. He was scared already, and that changed the shape of the air around us. The first secure checkpoint in Site Hecate had been opened from inside. The blast door stood ajar, inner locking pin sheared. On the wall beside it someone had written in black marker, "Do not let them learn your names." Below that, in different handwriting, someone else had written, "Too late." We entered a monitoring station with dead terminals and frost-crusted server racks. Mugs still sat on desks. A pack of cards lay mid-game on a table. On one monitor, powered only by some failing internal source, a single camera feed flickered in monochrome. It showed a corridor elsewhere in the facility. Nothing moved for several seconds. Then a shape crossed the far end. Not running, not walking. It moved sideways along the wall, like a spider learning the habit of being human. Limbs too long, head cocked, one arm folding the wrong direction at the elbow. Bishop swore under his breath. The figure stopped outside camera frame, but we heard it through the monitor speaker. 3 soft taps against the lens housing. Tap, tap, tap. The screen went black. Sato exhaled very slowly. That is not atmospheric distortion. Mendez found the first hard data in a secure drawer. Printed logs, half-burned but legible in parts. Hecate had started as a geomagnetic listening station during the Cold War. Later became a black-budget program studying low-frequency signal anomalies detected beneath Arctic permafrost. Then, 5 years before our insertion, it shifted again. Biological cognition, pattern transfer, linguistic mimicry, contact event potential. Contact, that word made the room smaller. The logs referenced something recovered from an impact cavity north of the city. Not a craft, not a body. A chamber, a naturally formed or engineered cavity in the ice containing a resonant structure that emitted pattern acoustic sequences. Researchers mapped the sequences, replicated them, broadcast them into the stone beneath the city. After first broadcast, subjects began hearing knocks in walls, floors, and plumbing. After third broadcast, subjects reported dreams of people standing outside their homes, asking to be let in. After sixth, citywide insomnia, auditory bleed, identity confusion, self-harm, family extermination events. After ninth, total quarantine. The final page ended mid-sentence. It is not communicating with us. It is teaching something through us. A sound rolled through the station then. Not loud, not a crash. More like many careful hands moving across the concrete outside the room. Reeves pivoted toward the hall. Contact front. Our beams lit the doorway. Empty corridor. Then Bishop breathed. Left. A face was half visible behind the glass of an observation booth adjoining the station. Pale, hairless. Skin stretched too smooth over a skull that seemed unfinished around the jaw. Its eyes had transparent inner lids sliding across them sideways. It was smiling with no lips at all, only teeth showing in a neat white crescent. It wore a torn technician's parka. Its ID badge swung from the chest. Dr. Leo Wynn. I raised my weapon. The thing lifted one long finger and tapped the glass 3 times. Tap, tap, tap. Then all the lights in the station came on at once. Not full power. Sick power. Yellow and trembling. Enough to show us that the booth behind the thing was packed wall to wall with people standing motionless in the dark. Human shapes. Dozens. All facing us. Reeves opened fire first. The glass exploded inward. The smiling thing dropped low with impossible speed, almost folding itself flat. The figures in the booth rushed the breach together, not stumbling, not screaming, but moving in total silence except for the scrape of boots and nails. We fell back into the corridor. Muzzle flashes hammered the dark. My first clear target was a man in security fatigues, missing the lower half of his face. He should have dropped when the rounds hit center mass. Instead, he lurched sideways and used the body behind him as cover. Intelligent, coordinated. When Reeves shifted to cut him down, another shape leaped from the booth ceiling and landed on Reeves's shoulders. I can still hear the sound of its hands closing around his helmet. Not claws. Hands. Too many joints in each finger, bending and tightening like white roots. Reeves slammed backward into the wall. I fired. So did Bishop. The thing came apart in gray flesh and black fluid, but not before it had forced its thumbs under the rim of Reeves's helmet and into his eye sockets. He dropped without a sound. We lost the station then. Lost our clean route. Lost any pretense that this was a recovery mission and not entry into a feeding ground. Harlan got us moving. Data core and out. Move. We ran deeper into Hecate while things that had once been people moved in the walls beside us, keeping pace, tapping gently as they followed. By noon, we understood the city was not empty. It was listening. The lower sections of Site Hecate were warmer, not heated, alive warmer. Condensation slicked the concrete. Frost gave way to beads of water that smelled of iron and old soil. We passed habitation modules, labs, kennels, a surgery suite, and a nursery room full of transparent cribs, size of something no human mother would have carried. Most were empty. One contained a crust of brown stains and a child's knit cap folded with strange care in the center, as if set there by ritual. Nobody spoke for a while after that. We crossed a central conduit bridge over a vertical shaft at 12:14 local. The shaft descended beyond our lights. Sound rose from it in delayed pulses. Not echoes. Voices, maybe names. Breath. Something wet shifting far below. Sato paused to angle his scanner down. There's an active field source under us. Massive. Define active, Harlan said, like a heartbeat in radio spectrum. I did not want to hear that, and I wanted even less to look down again, but some part of me kept doing it. There was a glow below, very faint and blue-gray, as if moonlight lived under the earth. It pulsed at long intervals, and each pulse made my feelings ache. Halfway across, Bishop stopped so abruptly I almost ran into him. What? Harlan snapped. Bishop's voice came thin through comms. I heard my daughter. We all heard nothing except the deep mechanical silence of the shaft. Bishop turned his head, as if listening to a speaker near his ear. He had 2 children in Virginia. He talked about them constantly, not to boast, just to keep their names warm in the air. Bishop, Mendez said, stay with us. A little girl's voice floated up from the shaft. Daddy. Every hair on my neck stood up under my balaclava. It was perfect. Small, hoarse with sleep, frightened. Bishop took one step toward the railing. Harlan grabbed his plate carrier. It's not real. The voice came again, closer now, not from below, but behind us on the bridge. Daddy, please let me in. We spun. At the far end of the bridge stood a child in a pink winter coat, face hidden by a hood rimmed with frost. Impossible. Absurd. And for a breath my mind accepted it anyway because it wanted relief. Bishop made a sound I had never heard from a grown man. Hope and terror meeting in the same instant. The child lifted a hand. Tap, 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 against the steel railing with one pale finger. Then the hood tilted back, and we saw there was no child inside the coat at all. Only a column of thin limbs braided together into the shape of a torso, topped by a smooth white head with too many eyes set along one side like drowned pearls. Bishop fired in blind panic. The thing moved before the muzzle flash, springing sideways onto the bridge truss and racing toward us upside down. Mendez caught the first impact as another creature dropped from the overhead pipework onto his back. His scream tore through comms. I turned to help and saw 3 more shapes climb out from beneath the bridge, their bodies narrow as eels and human only from the ribs up. The firefight became close and ugly. One creature hit Sato's chest first and wrapped him with its legs. He jammed a knife up beneath its jawline again and again while it pressed its face to his visor, transparent eyelids rippling. Mendez went down to one knee, dragging the thing off his back, but a second came from the shaft and bit into the inside of his thigh through the fabric. Its teeth were not sharp. They were flat and dense, meant for holding. Reeves would have anchored us there with pure volume of fire. Without him, the bridge felt narrow and breakable and doomed. Harlan advanced into the swarm with measured bursts, each shot placed, each command crisp. That steadied me. I dropped one creature against the rail, shot another through what should have been the clavicle, and saw black fluid mist across the gap. Bishop never got his footing back. He emptied half a magazine into the false child as it unfolded taller and taller, the pink coat tearing along its seams. Something else rose behind him from the shaft lip, gripped both sides of his helmet, and pulled. The helmet came off. So did most of what was under it. Bishop's body fell against the rail, twitched once, and went over. His scream went down the shaft for a very long time. We broke contact, only because the creatures let us. That is the truth I hate most. They could have closed the bridge from both ends and finished us. Instead, they harried us, wounded us, herded us deeper, like shepherds, like handlers driving livestock toward a gate. Mendez patched his leg while we sealed the next blast door behind us. He was pale and sweating despite the cold. The bite had gone through muscle. Around the wound, the skin was already darkening in lines like frost veins. Infection? I asked. Maybe pressure necrosis, he said, but his eyes slid away from mine. Sato was shaking. They're using voice print. Memory extraction, maybe. Not mimicry alone. Pattern anticipation. You saying they're reading us? Harlan asked. I'm saying when Bishop heard his daughter, the audio bypassed comms. It was inside the carrier wave riding our short-range network. They're not just copying speech. They're learning how we expect reality to sound. That sentence stayed with me. Learning how we expect reality to sound. We found the command archive at 1338. Vault door open. Servers dead. Data cores ripped out of mounts. Except one portable stack locked inside a blast-proof transit case. Our mission objective. Sitting on a table under an emergency lamp like a lure in a trap. Harlan went straight to it. Sato checked the integrity seals and nodded. Untouched. Nothing is untouched in a place like that. While they worked the case, I swept the adjoining office. Frost coated the inside of the observation window. But someone had cleared a circle with a hand from the other side. Through the circle, I could see into a chamber below the office floor. Something like an amphitheater or excavation pit. At the center stood the source. A vertical pillar of black stone, maybe 20 feet tall, rising from drilled bedrock. It was slick as if wet, though the chamber was freezing. Its surface was carved with shallow channels that pulsed faint blue from within, like veins carrying light instead of blood. Around its base lay scores of bodies in concentric rings. Lab staff, soldiers, civilians, some old, some recent, some seated upright against a stone as if resting. The channels brightened. A pressure wave touched my face through the glass, though no air moved. Then every corpse around the pillar turned its head toward me at the same time. I stumbled back, so hard I hit a desk. "Vale!" Harlan barked. Before I could answer, the room speakers came alive. Not static this time. My own voice. If you are hearing this, then my debrief was either ignored or buried. Every man in the archive froze. The speakers continued, playing the words I am speaking now, line by line, in my exact cadence. Not from this recording. From somewhere ahead of it, as if the stone had already heard what I would say after surviving. Sato went white. No. My copied voice kept talking, calm and tired and utterly wrong in that room. That means the thing we found beneath the snow is still being left to breathe. Mendez backed away from the ceiling speaker, as though it might spit teeth. How does it know that? It doesn't, Harlan said. But when he said it, 3 soft taps came from inside the data case on the table. Tap, tap, tap. Harlan looked at me. I looked at the case. Slowly, Sato lifted the latch again. Inside, nestled in foam around the hard drives, was a human hand. Fresh, pale, severed at the wrist. On the inner forearm someone had written in blue ink, "Do not take it out." The fingers moved. Just once. A small beckoning curl. Mendez made a strangled sound and slammed the lid shut. Harlan stepped back for the first time since insertion. Then the facility alarms began. No siren, no synthesized voice. Just every speaker in Hecate clicking on together and producing 3 synchronized knocks over and over, hundreds of them layered across the walls, the ceilings, the pipes, the floors. Tap, 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 tap. The sound became architecture. It filled our teeth, our sinuses, our joints. The vault door behind us started to close. Harlan shouted to move, but Sato was staring at the floor with blood running from his nose. "Too late," he whispered. "They have our names now." He shot himself through the chin before any of us could stop him. The report of the pistol in that enclosed room left my ears ringing. Sato collapsed against a server rack, skull opening the top frame like a red flower under frost. The radio on his chest stayed live for 3 more seconds. During those 3 seconds, through the burst of feedback, I heard his mother's voice singing something soft in Japanese. Mendez gagged. Harlan ripped the case from the table and shoved it at me. "Carry objective. Move." We left Sato there because the door was already grinding down, and if we delayed 1 second more we would die with him. I still see his hand twitching near the pistol as the gap narrowed. The next stretch is the part my sleep never survives. The alarms guided them. Every corridor we took had already been seeded. Ceiling grates bowed outward. Access panels trembled. Shadows peeled away from corners too quickly to track. The creatures no longer hid their numbers. They clicked and signaled to one another with those soft, measured knocks, and each knock answered from somewhere else, turning the whole facility into a living tactical net. They cut power ahead of us, then behind us, forcing our night vision to bloom and flare. They flooded sections with steam. They vented others to deep cold. They understood channelization. They understood ambush geometry. Somewhere in Hecate there had once been a military trainer or a watchful scientist who thought in corridors and killed boxes, and what came out of the stone had learned well. Mendez began hearing things no one else heard. At first it was small. His wife calling his name at the end of a hall. A baby crying under a floor grate. Then he started answering them. Short replies. "I'm here." "Wait." "No, stay back." "Keep him moving," Harlan said to me. The bite wound on Mendez's leg had spread black filaments up to his hip. He limped but refused aid. His breath smelled metallic now, like pennies warmed in a hand. We hit a vehicle tunnel at 1410 and thought, for one terrible hopeful second, that it might lead to surface egress. It did lead upward, But halfway through, we found the tunnel blocked by abandoned municipal buses chained together into a barricade, not built from the outside to keep something in, built from inside to keep something down. The windows of the buses were fogged white from within. We heard knocking inside, every one of them. Tap, 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 rows of palms pressed against the glass. Human-looking palms, though some had too many fingers and some were backward. The buses rocked gently on their suspensions as things shifted in the seats. Harlan led us through a maintenance catwalk above the barricade. I kept my eyes forward. Mendez did not. He stopped at the middle bus and turned his light onto the window. A woman stared out. For an instant she looked alive. Mid-30s maybe. Dark hair. Parka hood down. A wedding band catching the beam. Then the condensation on the glass slid aside in threads, revealing that her mouth had been stitched open into a permanent invitation. Behind her, something long and white was nested through the seats, using the bodies as support. Mendez, I said. The woman in the bus raised one finger. Tap, tap, tap. Mendez screamed and fired through the glass. Every bus erupted at once. Windows burst outward. Arms, faces, ribs, elongated necks. The catwalk shook beneath our boots as dozens of them lunged up toward us. We ran. One creature caught my ankle through the grate and nearly dragged me through. I put 3 rounds into its forehead at arm's length and saw nothing behind the bone that I recognized as a brain. Harlan pulled me free. Mendez covered our rear in ragged bursts until his rifle clicked empty. Then he began laughing. Not because it was funny, because something inside him had started to come loose. We reached the tunnel lift and forced the cage upward manually, while the swarm climbed after us through the shaft lattice. Below, in the muzzle flashes, I saw their bodies more clearly than ever. Most stood on 2 legs when they chose to. All could drop to 4 or 6 points of contact without losing speed. Their torsos were narrow, rib cages flared and flexible, shoulders dislocating to fit gaps no human frame could pass. Some wore remnants of uniforms or civilian clothes in careful ways, as if costume mattered to them. Their eyes tracked independently, their mouths opened too wide, but always in silence unless they were using a stolen voice. Halfway up the shaft, Mendez stopped laughing. He looked at us with tears on his lashes. Something's tapping inside my teeth. Harlan reached for him. Too slow. Mendez jammed 2 fingers into his own mouth, clawing desperately toward the back molars. Blood spilled over his chin. He made a gagging bark, and then a crack sounded from somewhere in his jaw. Something pale pushed between his teeth from the inside. At first, I thought it was bone. Then it flexed. A tiny finger, jointed too many times, pressed out from the gum line and tapped against his front teeth. Tap, tap, tap. Mendez tried to scream. More fingers split through the soft tissue under his tongue. Harlan shot him once through the temple. Mendez collapsed before the thing in his mouth could emerge further. The lift cage kept rising. Neither of us spoke for the next minute. When we reached the upper mechanical deck, surface light leaked through frozen ventilation louvers. Dusk already. Arctic day dying early. We were maybe 3 levels below the city utility annex, where we could punch out the street grade. The air was colder again, but the knocking followed. Harlan finally said, "Objective no longer primary." I looked at the case in my hands. It felt much heavier than when he had given it to me. Then why keep carrying it? His answer took too long. Because if Command wanted this buried, they buried it for a reason. That was the first openly dangerous thing he had said. Dangerous not because it was wrong, but because it meant he was no longer operating inside the mission. He was thinking beyond it, toward the men who sent us, toward betrayal, toward the possibility that we were retrieval, evidence disposal, and test subjects in one package. We pushed into the ventilation control hub and found the survivor. She was barricaded inside a maintenance booth with 3 dead creatures stacked outside the door. Their bodies had been opened from sternum to pelvis with something powerful and precise. She did not answer our challenge until Harlan gave old program codes from the Hecata logs. Then the booth cracked open and a woman, in a stained research smock, leveled a nail gun at our faces. She was maybe 50, hollow-cheeked, frostbitten fingertips. Name patch, Wynn. The smiling thing in the booth earlier had worn her badge. Dr. Leo Wynn? Harlan asked. She nodded once, eyes fixed on the case. You open archive transit. We found it that way. No, she said. You open it when you came here. They can move the sequence around in time once you hear enough of it. I had no patience left for cryptic speech. Tell us what they are. Her gaze shifted to me. She looked at my face as if measuring how much of it was still mine. They're not a species in the way you mean. They're instructions. Biological instructions carried in acoustic pattern. The pillar is a transmitter and a seed. It enters through hearing, memory, dreams, rhythm. It teaches tissue new architecture. It teaches groups how to synchronize. The body becomes a radio that can walk. Harlan asked, why mimic humans? Because the first layer of entry is invitation. Family, authority, familiar sound. Let me in. Open the door. Answer the knock. Her voice broke on the last word. Once enough minds align, the change can coordinate with the unchanged. That's how cities open themselves. I thought of the buses chained in the tunnel. Why is the city still standing? When close her eyes. Because we stopped the final transmission before full emergence. And the population? She did not answer in words. She looked toward the dark beyond the booth. All around us, from the ventilation trunks, came the faint reply. Tap, tap, tap. They are the population, she said. It should have ended there. We had information. We had one survivor. We had surface access one level up. But Harlan asked a question that condemned us. How do we kill the transmitter? When stared at him as if it asked how to kill gravity. You don't. You isolate it, bury it, starve it of new pattern hosts. Harlan shook his head. Command will come back. If we leave it, they'll excavate again. Then command dies with it, she said. He looked at the case. I knew before he spoke what he had decided. The hand inside that case, the warning, the trap, none of it mattered next to the military instinct that a target can be neutralized if enough force is applied. Maybe he was right. Maybe we could have ended it there. But the moment he chose offense over escape, the facility answered. The wall behind Wynn bowed inward. One soft knock sounded from inside the metal. Tap, then another much louder from somewhere above us. Tap, then every vent cover in the hub blew out at once. The creatures fell from the ducts in a white storm of limbs. Harlan fired before they landed. Wynn went down under the first impact, her nail gun chattering wildly. I dropped the case and dragged her toward the booth while Harlan cut a path through the swarm. The creatures came silent and coordinated. Two high, one low, another circling for the weapon arm. They had learned. Stack assault. Learned suppression by body placement. One even feinted retreat to pull Harlan's aim, and a second used that opening to climb his back. He killed it by smashing himself into the booth frame hard enough to dent steel. Another came through the overhead fan housing and landed on Wynn. She drove the nail gun into its eye socket and emptied the cartridge. But a longer one slipped under her arm and opened her throat with 3 quick movements of its hand. Blood sprayed warm across my glove. I shot both of them off her. Too late. Wynn seized my sleeve with astonishing strength. Her breath bubbled. If it speaks in your voice, do not believe it. If you see daylight where it should not be, do not go. Burn the ears. Then she died. Harlan yelled my name. I turned and saw him on one knee, left arm hanging useless, 3 creatures converging. I stepped out of the booth and emptied my last magazine into the closest targets. One dropped. One spun toward me and made, for the first time, a sound of its own, not a scream. A laugh. My laugh. Harlan got back to his feet, and together we fought to the ladder well. I never picked the case back up. I do not know whether Harlan noticed. I hope he did not. We sealed the ladder hatch and climbed toward the city with the whole dead structure below us knocking in patient unison. When we emerged onto the street, night had come. It was not a natural night. The sky above the city held a low sheet of cloud lit from underneath by blue-gray pulses rising through storm and ice. Street lamps flickered in mismatched intervals. Snow moved across the asphalt in long, dry skeins. Storefront windows stared black and blind. The silence up there was worse because now we knew what lived under it. Our extraction point was 4 blocks south at the municipal square. The backup bird would never risk landing inside the grid without positive comms, but might hover for visual pickup if we popped IR and reached open ground. Harlan could barely use his left arm. I had 2 magazines left, a sidearm, 1 flash, 1 thermite, and a combat knife sticky with black fluid. We moved fast through the center line of the street, avoiding alleys, avoiding doorways, avoiding the windows where frost had been cleared from the inside by curious hands. On the second block, the city woke. Lights came on in the apartments all at once. Not all the lights. 1 room per building, 1 window per floor. A pattern, like someone marking observation posts. Figures stood behind the lit glass. Men, women, children, still as mannequins. As we passed, each one raised a hand and tapped once against the pane. Then once more. Then once more. Tap, tap, tap. We ran harder. The municipal square open ahead, broad and wind-scoured, centered by a bronze statue, a miner half buried in snow. Our IR beacon strode green into the sky. No aircraft yet. Harlan tried long range again and got nothing but breathing static. Then voices began coming from the loudspeakers mounted on traffic poles around the square. Not random voices. Our voices. Bishop asking for his daughter. Mendez laughing in the lift. Sato whispering too late. Reeves calling contact front. And layered through all of it, my own voice continuing this confession. Lines I had not yet spoken. The rhythm perfect, the fatigue perfect, the fear perfect. You will think the snow is empty, the speaker said in my voice. You will think distance keeps you safe. Harlan stared upward, horrified in a way I had not seen even below. It's writing you. Something moved beside the statue. Not a creature this time. A man in cold weather combat. Gear stepped from behind the bronze base with a rifle at low ready. NVG's up. U.S. flag patch. White oversuit with no unit markings. Human posture. Human breath steaming in the air. Friendly, he called. Over here. Harlan took 1 step toward him. I grabbed his vest. No. The soldier lifted his free hand, palm open. We're the second team. Birds inbound. Hurry. There was relief in his voice so expertly measured that for 1 heartbeat I nearly believed him. Then I saw the detail that saved me. His boots were spotless. No snow packed in the tread. No wetness at the seams. He had stepped into the square without leaving prints. Harlan, I said quietly. Look down. Too late. The soldier smiled. No lips, just teeth. Every figure in every lit window around the square moved at once. They disappeared from the glass. The snowbanks along the square burst open. They had buried themselves under the drifts, under parked cars, beneath benches, inside maintenance sheds, under the skin of the city. They came up in coordinated lines, silent, low, fast, surrounding the open ground while more spilled from manholes and storefronts. Dozens, then more than dozens. Harlan shoved me toward the statue base. Thermite. I understood. Bronze. Hollow pedestal. Maybe enough metal and heat to buy confusion. I sprinted through gunfire and knocking and slammed the thermite charge into the access seam at the statue plinth, while Harlan laid down covering fire. Rounds sparked from ice. Bodies folded and kept coming. One reached him from the left, and he tore it open with a knife in his offhand. Another latched onto his wounded arm and climbed him like a cable. I hit ignition and threw myself down. The thermite bloomed white, then orange, hot enough to make the snow erupt into steam. Molten bronze spat through the seam, pouring down the pedestal like liquid sun. The nearest creatures recoiled, not from pain exactly, but from disruption. Heat made them lose cohesion. Their timing broke. Their taps fell out of rhythm. Harlan saw it too. Their ears! Wynn's last word slammed into me. Burn the ears. The change had small slits behind the jawline, hidden by skin folds. Resonance organs, maybe. Signal organs. Harlan switched targets instantly, firing for the side of the head instead of center mass. I followed. It worked. Creatures hit through those slits, convulsed violently, their limbs losing sequence, bodies collapsing into twitching heaps. But there were too many. One took Harlan from behind, while another caught his leg. He went down hard. I tried to reach him, and 3 converged on me, tapping against the pavement as they advanced, as if counting range. I shot 1, stabbed another, felt a 3rd hand brush the back of my neck with terrible gentleness. Then Harlan roared and detonated a grenade at his own position. The blast threw bodies, ice, and bronze fragments across the square. It also tore Harlan open. When my hearing came back in thin needles, he was lying on his back in a steam cloud, lower body twisted wrong, rifle gone. 1 creature still crawled toward him without legs, dragging itself with its hands. Harlan used his last strength to pull his sidearm and put a round to the slit behind its jaw. Then he looked at me. No speech at first, just breath crystallizing above him. I crawled closer. "Go," he said. "I can drag you." He almost smiled at that. "No, you can witness." A shadow fell over us. Above the steam, above the lit windows and the swarming white shapes, the extraction bird finally appeared as a black silhouette circling too high. Unable to commit. Harlan saw it too. He gripped my wrist with bloody fingers. "Tell them bury the coast. Salt the runways. No rescue teams. No listening stations. Burn every recording." His eyes shifted past me then, widening. I turned. Across the far side of the square, the apartment lights had gone out, all except one. In the top floor window of the courthouse stood a figure in my exact gear, my height, my rifle, my face under the helmet visor. It raised a hand to glass and tapped 3 times. Tap, tap, tap. Then it lifted a radio handset to his mouth, and through every speaker in the square and every still open channel in my headset, I heard myself say, perfectly calm, "Sergeant Vale, this is command. We have your location. Hold position. Help is entering the city now." Harlan heard it. I heard the decision forming him before he made it. If help entered, it would be over. He pulled the 2nd grenade from his vest and pushed it into my hand. Make them turn away. The swarm was regrouping, relearning rhythm around the heat ruin of the statue. I looked at Harlan, at the grenade, at the circling bird, at my own face in the courthouse window. Then Harlan rolled onto the grenade pin still hooked through his finger and locked his gaze on me until I understood. I ran. The explosion behind me hit like a fist to the spine. I did not look back. I crossed the square through steam and drifting ash while the creatures reeled from the 2nd blast. I fired the last of my rifle rounds into window speakers, traffic poles, anything broadcasting. My own voice shattered into bursts of static overhead. At the south edge of the square, I found an old service garage with a fuel bowser half full and a municipal plow idling dead under snow. The keys were still in it. I do not know whether that was chance or arrangement. I only know I drove the plow straight to the garage door, across the curb, and into the center of the square, while the bird banked overhead searching for a landing it must never make. The creatures turned toward the engine noise as one body. The face in the courthouse window was gone. I jumped clear at speed, broke my shoulder on the pavement, and rolled behind a snow barrier as the plow struck the molten pedestal. I pulled the pin and tossed Harlan's grenade into the fuel tank, rupture a second before impact. Flame climbed the square in a pillar. Bronze, diesel, shattered ice, and white bodies went up together. The shock wave punched out half the courthouse windows and sent the bird veering hard west. For a moment, the entire city seemed to inhale. Every building light flashed blue-gray from below, brighter than before, as if the thing under the stone had opened one vast eye. Then the sky answered. I had forgotten the old air defense batteries north of the city were still tied to automated seismic protocols. Maybe Hecate woke them. Maybe Command did. Maybe something below learned the pattern well enough to do it itself. All I know is that sirens started in the distance, and contrails cut down to the cloud deck. The first missile struck 3 blocks east. The second hit the utility annex behind me. The third found the square. After that, I remember only fragments. Snow turned to steam. Storefronts peeled outward. A wall hit me from somewhere. I woke hours later in a drainage cul-de-sac of the city with one ear bleeding, half my face burned, and the whole northern horizon red under blowing ash. Officially, they told me an ammunition cache under the abandoned municipality detonated during a seismic event. Officially, no second team existed. No civilian population remained. No deep listening station had ever been authorized. Officially, Harlan, Reeves, Bishop Mendez, and Sato died in an industrial collapse during weather evacuation support. Officially, I never went back. But for 6 nights after extraction, while sedated in a sealed ward 2 states away, I heard 3 soft knocks on the vent above my bed at exactly 0217 hours. Tap, tap, tap. On the 7th night, a nurse entered to check my 4. She asked me my name before she looked at the chart. Her voice was normal. Her face was kind. But behind her left jaw, just below the ear, I saw the skin tremble in a tiny rhythmic pulse, like something inside was listening for a signal. I said nothing. I still say nothing in daylight. I avoid recordings when I can. I live far from cities now, far from pipes and walls, far from apartment towers where one lit window can ruin the dark. Sometimes I wake with blood on my pillow because I've been digging at my own ears in sleep. Sometimes I hear my mother calling from outside the door of whatever room I am in, though she has been dead for 12 years. Sometimes I hear Harlan telling me to. Witness. So this is my witness. If you ever hear a careful knocking where no hand should be, do not answer it. If a voice on the radio knows what you have not yet said, destroy the radio. If someone you love is standing outside in the snow after you watch them die, do not open the door. And if the government announces a silent evacuation, a communications blackout, or a weather closure anywhere along the Alaskan coast, do not wait for explanation. Do not look for footage. Do not follow the lights. Leave the road. Leave the state. Keep driving until the pipes and the walls stop talking. Because the dead city is not dead. It is practicing. And sometimes near dawn, when the sky turns that dirty Arctic gray and the world is quiet enough to hear your own pulse, I see one last image so clearly that I know it is not memory but promise. A courthouse window high above a snow-buried square, and behind the glass, my own face smiling patiently in the dark, one hand lifted, waiting for me to let it in.